Hi, my name is Sylvia Martinez, and I am the mother of Alyssa Martinez. And I just want to say congratulations to all of you who are going to become seniors pretty soon. And I'm so excited because I will be graduating in a couple of weeks. Go Titans! So today I'm going to share with you about my journey to the U.S. I was brought here illegally as a very young child, and I'm just going to share with you how I got to where I am today. I was born in Michoacan, Mexico in 1971, and my family brought us to my parents brought us to the United States in 1974 was when I entered. I was 3 years old at the time. This is my family that came from Mexico. There are seven children total. You only see 6 here because my youngest sister, Elizabeth, was not born yet. Elizabeth was the only American-born U.S. citizen in our family. From my understanding, our family was brought here by family friends that lived in Los Angeles area, and obviously they couldn't bring all 7 kids at one time, so we were technically smuggled here, like 1 or 2 at a time, until we were all here with my parents. When we first arrived into the U.S., we lived in Los Angeles, and we lived in a small two-bedroom apartment. My mother did not work when we were living in Los Angeles, and my father worked for I guess it was a picker. He picked produce. I don't know exactly where, but he worked in the fields. So then after we had been living in Los Angeles for over a year, my mother gave birth to her 7th child, Elizabeth. And maybe less than 6 months after Elizabeth was born, our mother left the country. She went back to Mexico, apparently because our father was very abusive and she was trying to escape, and she would rather take her kids back to Mexico than live in this type of environment with him. But unfortunately, she was not able to take us back. Our father was very controlling and domineering, and he did not allow her to take any children with her to Mexico, and therefore he basically gave her no choice but to leave on her own back to Mexico and leave her children here. When our mother went back to Mexico, she had left a note for my 2 older siblings, my brother Martin and my sister Margaret, and they were at an age where they could understand, and she basically left them a note saying that she had to leave, and she apologized, but said she would not be returning. So after her mom left, we were all 7 kids, including my baby sister, who was barely 6 months old. We were all left in the care of our father and a family friend who took care of us while he was at work. But that didn't last too long, because maybe 6 months later to a year later, this family friend reported my father to the authorities because she was concerned for our well-being and our safety, because he was an alcoholic and he was very abusive towards the kids. So therefore, social services was involved, and all 7 kids were taken from him. And when it was discovered that he was an illegal immigrant, he was deported back to Mexico, and we were placed in foster care. I was about 4 or 5 years old when I went into my first foster home, and then at the age of 9, I was placed in my 4th foster home, and then at the age of 10 I was adopted by those foster parents. Thankfully, I was able to get adopted with one of my sisters. My sister Zenaida, we were the closest in age. She was just 1 year older than I am, and we were always placed together in every foster home that we were placed in, and we were also placed for adoption together. Our social worker insisted on keeping us together at all times. And this is a picture of Zenaida and myself and my adopted parents. The time we spent in foster homes, unfortunately, they don't have good memories. Zenaida and I, we encountered some mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and also considering Spanish was our primary language, and back in those days it was looked down upon that you were Mexican and spoke Spanish, so we were not allowed to speak Spanish in the home, and we were basically forced to learn English as quickly as possible and assimilate to our new environment. And when my sister and I would try to speak to each other in Spanish, if we got caught, we would get in trouble, because that was absolutely not allowed. It was forbidden for us to be speaking Spanish, even to one another. And I do recall signs being placed around the house, specifically stating, no speaking Spanish, you are in America, not in Mexico. And growing up like that, I started to feel ashamed of who I was, and the fact that I was Mexican, that I was born in Mexico, and that I spoke Spanish. I didn't feel proud of my heritage. I didn't feel that that was anything to be proud of at all, and I wanted to assimilate to the American society and become one of them, become an American. So, needless to say, speaking English in the homes and at school, we assimilated quickly, and eventually, unfortunately, I forgot my Spanish. I don't speak it anymore. I can understand some, but I really struggle with the language, and I regret that. I regret that I wasn't allowed to speak it, and it bothers me. And but I'm doing my best to pick up the language again. But it was a very, very hard experience growing up that way and feeling ashamed of who I was. In 1990, when I was 19 years old, I took it upon myself to find an immigration attorney and start the process to become a citizen. I had no idea what to do, where to start, because being adopted by American citizens did not automatically give you citizenship, which was something that my parents were unaware of. Apparently, they were led to believe that because they're citizens and they adopted my sister and I, that we automatically gained citizenship, which was false. So I found an attorney that had an office down the street from where I lived at the time, and without the support of my parents or anybody, I asked him to help me, and I didn't have a job, but he offered me a job within the company so I could help pay the fees, the attorney fees, which is a very generous, kind thing for someone to do. I don't know if anybody would do something like that in today's day. I worked for that law firm until I was able to pay the attorney's fees back, and I'm forever grateful for what that gentleman did for me. I got my green card at the age of 19, and from that point on, I had to wait, I believe at the time, it was 5 years before I could apply for citizenship. Time came and went. I started a family, and I kind of pushed that aside. But I had my green card, and I knew eventually I was going to apply for citizenship. So in 2001, when I was 30 years old, I finally became a citizen and got sworn in, and it was the proudest moment of my life. And here is my proof of citizenship. And I was finally able to attain my passport. These two things are very, very, very precious to me. Now, I'm proud to be a U.S. citizen, but I'm trying to get back to my roots. and my heritage. The fact that my siblings and I were split up and when we were really young in foster care, there was a short while that we didn't have much contact with each other, but our social worker at the time was very good at keeping us in contact and arranging get-togethers for all 7 of us. And also my older sister, Margaret, was very, very good at making sure she knew where we all were and having our addresses and phone numbers and how to contact us. She played a big part in keeping us together and keeping us in contact with each other. With what has happened to all 7 of us, I feel that family is so important to, like, the 7 of us, we feel like it's what we just have each other. We don't have parents. Our father passed away when I was 7 years old. He committed suicide once he realized he was never going to get his kids back. And our mother, we never found out where she was until we were all adults, and she reached out to us, and she had already started a new life in Mexico. She remarried and had 3 other children. So it was hard developing a relationship with her because I felt like I really didn't know her, and it was also there was also the language barrier. I didn't speak Spanish, and my biological mother didn't speak English, so it was very hard to communicate that way. I did meet her 3 times in my life, and I never felt the connection, the bond that people say you automatically feel when you see your mother for the first time. I never felt that. And I never had a close relationship with my adopted parents either. So I feel that that draws me and my siblings a lot closer together because they were in the same boat. They never had close relationships with their adopted parents either. So in a sense, we always felt like orphans, even though we were adopted. And that just binds us closer together. So now that I am a Mexican-American citizen, I still struggle with that because I'm a nurse and I work in Pomona with a lot of Spanish-speaking patients, and I do my best to get by, and I have learned a lot of Spanish from working there. But I do get criticized a lot by the Hispanics because I am Hispanic, and they expect me to know the language, and they almost seem disappointed that I don't speak Spanish, and sometimes I feel shamed. I feel like I should, because that was my first language, and that is my heritage. It's a struggle there, but then oftentimes I get frustrated with the fact that Hispanics come to this country and refuse to learn the English language. So it's a struggle on both sides. As far as discrimination goes, I do remember one incident in high school which kind of, I didn't know what to think of it. It really confused me. I was walking home from school by myself, and a policeman pulled up next to me and literally asked to see my ID. He said, "Do you have a green card?" And I thought to myself, why would he assume that I have a green card? I told him, no, I said, I go to school here and I live here. And I spoke to him in my perfect English, and then he left me alone. But it scared me. It honestly did, because I knew at the time that I was not a U.S. citizen. I was 16 years old at the time, and it really scared me because I did not have a green card and I was not a U.S. citizen. And I started thinking, am I going to get pulled over just for that? And are cops just going to be checking to see if I have a green card? that one incident really, I have to say, really shook me up. So I basically got stopped by a cop for being Mexican. So now that I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm really proud of it. It's something that I always wanted, and you know, a couple of my siblings are not U.S. citizens, and I try to encourage them to do it back when I did, but you know, they had a different mentality about it. They felt that they should not have to go through that process because we've lived here practically all our lives, and we were adopted, and we've assimilated to this society, and basically the state of California took custody of us, and they feel that once that happened, you know, we should have been given at least a green card, if not citizenship. But we got nothing from the state, and we basically grew up as illegal immigrant children. So now, you know, a question that my daughter has asked me often, aside from this interview, is how I feel about illegal immigrants coming to this country. You know, it's so mixed, my emotions, my feelings about that. I completely 100% understand why people would want to leave Mexico and come to this country with their children, because they want to work and they want a better life for their kids. And unfortunately, Mexico, it's very hard to provide the best kind of home environment for your kid. But I do feel that if they're going to make that move into the country, that they should go through the process to at least become legal. And I also feel that they should make an attempt to learn the English language. It's mixed, it's very mixed. The patients that I treat that I know are here just to have their babies, I treat them with respect. I don't harbor any negativity towards them. I just do think they should do things the right way and go through the process of becoming legal residents, as opposed to just remaining illegals the entire time they're here. I think that the government should allow illegals to stay here, those who can prove that they've been living here if they've been living here for 10 years and shown that they've been working, they should be able to go through the process to apply for legal residency or citizenship, if that's what they choose to do. I just feel like if you want to be a part of this country, you need to make every effort to do it right and contribute. That's my stance. I know it might be a little confusing. It seems like I kind of waver. And I think that's because of how I got here. I feel kind of a pull in both directions. I can't say that I'm 100% anti-immigration. I'm not. And I can't say that I'm 100% for illegals allowing to stay here without becoming legal residents or citizens. I can't say that I agree 100% with deportation. It's a very touchy subject. It's a very touchy subject for me, especially, you know, when children have been living here and then they have to get deported back to Mexico, back to their country, and they've lived here for 5 years or 10 years, and all they know is this country, and then to have to go back to Mexico. That would be so devastating. I couldn't even imagine having to go through that. So I feel that they should be able to stay if they can prove that they've been living here consistently and working. That's where I stand. It's kind of wishy-washy. That's all I have to say. And on a last note, I have to say I'm proud of my children for how they've grown up, and I'm very proud of my daughter for going to college and just getting her degree. She'll be the first one in my family to get her bachelor's degree. Oh no, I'm sorry. The first one would be me, because I will be graduating in a couple of weeks from Cal State Fullerton. Go Titans!